corrected. Many people in the community, you know, a lot of times it's groups, but I think even more importantly, sometimes it's working with my neighbors. I've been a mentor to several, like William Tao, who has really gone on and done some amazing things as a Lowell neighbor, and his older brother helping him get into the college system. So sometimes it's official, and sometimes I think it's just as important those individual connections that we make that help us understand community better, and also we can lend our help wherever we can.
Okay. So the next round of questions will come from the candidate question jar, which will be specific to your district. The first question is for Trustee Miguel. How will you make sure the second round of Transformative Climate Community Collaborative, otherwise known as TCCC, include Hmong organizations and the Hmong community? How will you make sure that the second round of Transformative Climate Community Collaborative, also known as TCCC, include Hmong organizations and the Hmong community?
So let me start off with being very, very frank. The first round of state resources in that process did not include any of your voices. And just as a reminder, District 3, the demographics are as follows. The largest population is Hispanic, the second largest is Southeast Asian, Hmong, third largest is African American, and then the last group is Caucasians in the district. Yet the second largest voice was not part of the process. As a council member, I intimately understand that community. I know how many thousands of Hmong residents are there. I know how many voters are in that area. And I know that as a community, you're not one to be the loudest. But yet, you have a right, and we have an obligation to make sure that your community is invested in just like everybody else is. In Southwest Fresno, it is time for us to spend time in really looking at the diverse area of the district and making sure every voice is in that process. As a council member, I want to allow a TCC process that replicates what happened the first time around, where one group is allowed to drive the process at the expense of the rest of the groups in that district. You are part of West Fresno. You are part of District 3, a big portion of it, and it's time for us to engage with you in that process. As a trustee in State Center College, we make sure that our staff met with the Southeast Asian community and heard from the Hmong community when we were developing the new West Fresno campus. We make sure that we met with you guys and heard your voices as we're developing the Southeast campus. You deserve to be at the table.
Next question is for candidate Tate Hill. Will you look to hire staff that represent the demographics once you are elected? One more time. Will you look to hire staff that represent the demographics once you are elected?
So as the next city council member, I really want to make sure that I have good representation from our entire district as a part of my comprehensive team. Some of that includes staff, but I think there's also other ways to make sure that I'm inclusive. There's a number of ways as a council member that you can do that. Is making sure that there's representation on boards and commissions. For example, right now there's no one from District 3 on the Planning Commission. It hasn't been since Cynthia Sterling. That's something definitely I would want to change and make sure that we're involved in the land use process. Second, I would re-implement or re-establish the Implementation Committee, which is the district level review of land use issues, and make sure that we have diverse representation there in the office. Third is, where there's not direct appointment to offices, is that I would encourage the mayor's office or other elected officials to also have that representation. And then fourth, I think, one of the great ways to build up capacity within our communities is also through internships. Where you leverage clubs like the Hmong Student Association of Fresno State or Fresno City College to make sure that there's representation. And fifth, my community advisory council is something that I would have, that I would make sure that there's representation from the Hmong community.
Thank you. Next question is for candidate Sean. How will you make sure that high-speed rail include the Hmong community in their workforce and job opportunities? How will you make sure that high-speed rail includes the Hmong community in their workforce and job opportunities?
Well, first of all, that's more of a state-run project, and I'm not sure how much the city council has input as far as the workforce is involved in high-speed rail. My own take on the high-speed rail is I'm not really for the high-speed rail. I believe Amtrak already has enough infrastructure for rapid transit between the Bay Area and Fresno. We just need to expand on the infrastructure to Los Angeles. Amtrak trains travel up to 150 miles an hour. How much faster do we need to go with high-speed rail, or how much faster could it be between stops? So as far as a proponent for high-speed rail, I'm not for that. As far as inclusiveness of Hmong people in large projects like the TCC, which we would have input in District 3, is I would make sure that I reach out to Hmong organizations such as community leaders in the Hmong community to make sure they have a voice in the process of how funds are used in our community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next question is for candidate Darren Miller. How has the Hmong community been impacted by city council policies? How has the Hmong community been impacted by city council policies?
In a reactive manner. And what I mean by that is that there's a situation that happens, an incident or something along those lines, and then, such as what you're talking about with the TCC. There's money that comes in, people are left out of the process, and then all of a sudden the mistake happens. The Hmong community in this particular case was left out of it. Now we're looking for remedies to be able to resolve that. So Fresno, the city of Fresno has done a lot of that in their policies and procedures moving forward. I think that what you have to do is you have to stay ready. I think that's the role that I will, that the city council person needs to take. I know that's the role that I will take in education, is to make sure that people are ready for whatever it is that's coming. District 3 is going to change. It's changed from what I remember. It's going to be different for my grandkids as it comes up. We always have to stay ready. And the only way that you can make sure that the Hmong community is part of that process is by being engaged and interactive with them. And I commit to that. That's what I've done as a school, as an educator, and that's what I commit to do as a city council person, is to seek ways for Darren Miller to hear the voices of the Hmong community, the Southeast Asian community, finding out exactly what it is, what their desires are, so that I can become a voice. I'm not a dictatorial type of person, although I'll have the pleasure of representing District 3. I cannot do it all alone. I've got to be able to create ways, including the Hmong voices and everything, as we move forward.
Next question is for candidate Craig. How will you make sure that the Hmong community is aware of the new Groundwater Sustainability Act and its impact on the Hmong farmers and households? How will you make sure that the Hmong community is aware of the new Groundwater Sustainability Act and its impact on the Hmong farmers and households?
So, two parts. One, every part of the community is going to be represented in everything that I do, whether it's staff or it's the district advisory panel or any of the appointments or the committees that we have, so that we have good communication channels. The second part of that question is a huge part of my desire to run for city council is to increase the availability for community gardens, urban farming, edible landscape at housing, gray water systems within our housing to be able to recycle the water. That's been allowed in California for years, but we aren't doing it. Increasing the access and the knowledge about cottage food industry. People aren't aware that they can actually make commercial food products in their own kitchens and be able to sell them. And a lot of things that other cities have done that Fresno should have done decades ago is say, if you're growing food in your home or a community garden or in an urban farm, that you should be able to sell that food to restaurants and grocery stores and in farmers markets. So we can increase access to fresh, healthy food throughout our entire community.
Thank you. Okay, so, second question, coming back around to Trustee Miguel. As a council member, how will you work with the Hmong community to ensure that they are included in all levels of Fresno City government? One more time. As a council member, how will you work with the Hmong community to ensure that they are included at all levels of Fresno City government?
The first step I'm going to take is to recognize that the Hmong community has been here for 40 years. You are no longer just a community of refugees and farmers. You're also a community of professionals, doctors and lawyers and educators and assistant superintendents. And that is the first challenge in having any community who's new to America, is that they always get defined historically as they were when they got here. So when you recognize that, you then have to treat them like they're Main Street. You will have appointments on my staff. You will have appointments on the Planning Commission and the City Council committees. You will also reap the benefits of doing business with the city. There's a lot of good companies in the Hmong community that are not doing any business with the city. In State Center, we started contracting with Southeast Asian organizations to do the outreach for our new college campuses. We started hiring them to do advertisement. We started to advertise in Hmong TV Network as we have in Fresno Unified. The first recognition is that you guys are a very diverse group, and what your kids need is different than what your grandparents need. And we have to have something for all the generations of the Hmong community, and that's going to be a given for me. You won't hear me talk about how much I care about you. I'm going to show you that I respect you as a peer, as a member of this community, by including you in every operation of the city.
Thank you. Next question is for candidate Tate. How will you make sure that high-speed rail include the Hmong community in your workforce and job opportunities? One more time. How will you make sure that high-speed rail include the Hmong community in your workforce and job opportunities?
I was hoping I would get this question. As president of the Fresno Metro Black Chamber, one of the first things that we did when the high-speed rail began its conversation was to start talking about local and small and minority business goals that the federal Department of Transportation requires. At the time, the state was not looking to do that, and so we began to engage with our other minority business organizations across the state of California, from the California Black Chamber to the Cal Asian Chamber, then locally with ABERT, to look at those contracting opportunities. Because I really believe that the greatest way to have economic employment opportunities, particularly with underserved communities, is through their businesses. And we want to make sure that there is a significant utilization of Hmong workers in the high-speed rail contracts, is to make sure that we have Hmong businesses who are getting contracts through high-speed rail. And that requires two things. One is technical assistance and support, and also financing. And as a manager at Access Plus Capital, we have been doing that kind of financing to minority businesses, particularly Southeast Asian businesses, for the last 10 years. And so making sure that the city and high-speed rail utilizes small and minority contractors, which also starts with making sure the city itself does that. And that will be a priority for me.
Thank you. Next question is for candidate Sean Sanchez. How will you make sure that the Hmong community is aware of the new Groundwater Sustainability Act and its impact on the Hmong farmers and households? How will you make sure that the Hmong community is aware of the new Groundwater Sustainability Act and its impact on the Hmong farmers and households?
First of all, I'm not too familiar with this issue, but the number one thing you have to do is inform the Hmong families and farmers that are in the business of agriculture as far as reclaimed water and water issues. So I would probably look to learn more about the issue and also reach out to the farmers that are working with water issues and make sure that they're aware of these issues.
Thank you. Next question is for candidate Darren Miller.
Must be a good one.
It is a repeat question. How will you make sure that high-speed rail include the Hmong community in your workforce and job opportunities? How will you make sure that high-speed rail include the Hmong community in your workforce and job opportunities?
You have to be intentional. We all know that all ethnic groups, in particular the Hmong community, needs to be included in all of the decisions and all of the policies that we create. But just wanting that and stating that is not enough. I shared this example. We don't go to the doctor and tell them, doctor, I don't feel well, fix me. He's going to start asking questions. Is it your elbow? Is it your knee? Is it your head? So they can come up with a prescription specifically for whatever is that ails you. I think the only way that we're going to be able to include our Hmong population as well as our other ethnic populations and everything we do is by being prescriptive. We want more inclusion. How are we going to do that? We got to come up with a script. It's got to take voices from the Hmong community. We've got to include voices from the Hmong community that's actually involved and engaged in that process, whatever it may be, whether it be water, whether it be, we talked about high-speed rail, whatever it is. We've got people who are working inside of those industries. We've got to get their voices. I'm a firm believer that what's going on with educational systems, with the CT, career technical education components, also can be a catalyst for moving ourselves forward, for whatever it is. But I just believe that we have to be more intentional. We have to be more prescriptive in coming up with resolutions or ways to resolve whatever issue it is. And I think that the inclusion of the Hmong culture, Hmong people into all these elements has to be done intentionally.
Thank you. Next question is for candidate Craig. How will you make sure that the second round of Transformative Climate Community Collaborative, also known as TCCC, include Hmong organizations and the Hmong community? How will you make sure that the second round of Transformative Climate Community Collaborative, also known as TCCC, include Hmong organizations and the Hmong community?
Well, the best way to do it is to get involved up front. So pulling everyone in intentionally at the front part of the process so that everyone has a seat at the table and can be involved with structuring the whole process, first of all, and then structuring the goals so that we get the right outcomes. The first process was unbelievably chaotic and not thought through, and I don't think will yield the best possible results for the community, but again, we were the first one to get that type of funding, and so it was a roller coaster ride of a process. So now's the time to start getting ready for these kinds of things, whether it is for this particular type of funding or any other type of funding or any kinds of policy decisions. We need to have all of your voices included now so that we are ready and better able to respond in the future. And if I am your representative, that will be a primary goal of mine, is to get everyone involved with neighborhood councils, setting neighborhood priorities, business district councils, business priorities, coming from you so that we can start acting on those priorities together.
So last round of questions, you guys will have 1 minute each to answer, and everyone will be answering the same question. And that question is, for Trustee Miguel, why should the Hmong community vote for you?
Thank you for the question. My first experience with the Hmong community was a resettlement, but the most important experience I had was with opening the Academy for New Americans. It was a decision that we had to make to direct money where we would keep the community and the kids together so that they can develop their culture and assimilate to this country. As a result, our Southeast Asian Hmong students have the highest graduation rate of any group in the district. Our college going rates are also the highest. Most recently, we helped on opening the Hmong dual immersion program so that your grandkids can learn fluently the Hmong language to be able to communicate with their grandparents. We also support the Hmong Voices celebration to keep and celebrate the history and the culture of your community. If you want to vote for me not based on what I'm telling you, but based on what we've done. We all here have had the opportunity to hire Hmong folks. The question is, have we? We've had the opportunity to contract with Hmong organizations and partner with Hmong groups. The question is, have we? And in my 20 years here, I have. I've hired staff that's Hmong. I've contracted with companies that are Hmong. We've advertised with organizations and partners. Thank you.
Okay, so candidate Tate Hill, why should the Hmong community vote for you?
So as someone that has grown up with the Hmong community from elementary to now, I see the Hmong community as a peer. We have similar experiences, similar struggles, similar, in a lot of ways I even see within the African American community and Hmong community a lot of similarities, and so there is a connection. The work that I've done and supporting small businesses around entrepreneurship speaks to the work with the Hmong community, and in every aspect, I don't see the Hmong community as some group to the side, but as a peer, whether it's around advocacy for small businesses and employment opportunities. Even our church has a co-location with a Hmong church, and so I see the Hmong community as a part of my work, and as your next city council member, I would do exactly the same thing.
Thank you. Candidate Sean Sandhead.
It's a tongue twister. Thank you. Thank you. I do believe that the number one issue for the Hmong community is having a voice in the city council and being represented. As an employer, I have hired Hmong people in my business, so I'm proud to say that, and the private sector, not just the public sector too. So thank you for bringing that up, Miguel. Also, so if I'm elected your city council member, I will make sure that part of my staff is a representation of the Hmong community. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Darren Miller.
So let me tell you what I'm doing. Not about what I've done, not about what I want to do in the future. Let me tell you what I'm actually doing right now. I have my campaign has a 7-person advisory team. Bahar, one of my former Hmong students, is on that advisory team. So I have a Hmong representative, a Hmong voice, that's on my advisory committee currently. I'm a Hmong Democrat. I'm a member of the Hmong Democratic Club. As I said, I helped start it. I'm not one of the initial members, but I did help start it in my role that I have with the Fresno County Democratic Party. I am a member, an active member, been an active member since it started. I am part of, Darren Miller is part of that group. I'm eyeball deep for the last 28 years in the educational processes that goes on with the Hmong community. I've been to numerous events, the new bilingual education program that they've had, the workshops, the open houses at the different schools. I've attended those. I have classmates. I'm working on getting a doctoral degree right now out of Fresno State. I have Hmong classmates that I've been able to work with, the Hmong women in particular, and watch their struggles through the educational process. So Darren Miller currently is involved in the Hmong community in different ways, and he will continue to be.
Thank you. Candidate Craig?
I have a long 32 years history of working with the Hmong community. I was part of the first Hmong Women's Scholarship program back in the 1980s. Continued to work with the community throughout the years, and I will continue going forward. I'll also be raising some very important issues I haven't touched on yet today that are affecting all of our communities, which is in South Fresno. We have some of the highest lead levels in our children's blood in the United States that are affecting all of our children, and I need that issue to be raised so that you know about it. Lead in your children's and grandchildren's blood is going to impact their IQ, their ability to pay attention. It causes issues of acting out, and it's unconscionable to me, whether I win or lose, that we don't address this issue. So I want you to know about it so that we can fight those kinds of things together.
Thank you. Okay, so thank you all for your responses. We will now move on to your closing. May I remind you that you will have 1 minute each, and we will start with Trustee Miguel.
You know, my family crossed the Rio Grande River to get here. Your generation crossed the Mekong River to safety. We both ended up in this country where it required our hard work and our perseverance. It required significant sacrifice from our parents and our grandparents. Your families have served honorably in the military, and they deserve the same honorable, burials and funerals that any other veteran in this country has. Our kids are going to school together, growing up together, working together. Our professionals deserve the same opportunities to work in City Hall, to work for City Hall, and that's all we're asking for, is a fair shot. We've done our part. We've built this city up together in this community, and we deserve to be an integral part of it. And as a council member, I'm going to fight for that. And I'm not going to make excuses. I'm not going to, tell you what you want to hear. I'm going to be very direct with those and force them to open those doors of opportunity that we have earned and that you have earned. Thank you.
Candidate Tate.
First, I want to thank Fresno Center for New Americans for opening this opportunity to have a conversation with you. And one of the things I recognize, particularly in District 3, we need to do a better job, and I want to do a better job of engaging the Hmong community within the district. We're glad to be here in Southeast Fresno, but within the district, we need to engage the Hmong community at a much better level. We need to be able to support the businesses, whether the funeral homes or other businesses that are in the district. I want to make sure that that you feel safe in your neighborhood, that your neighborhood is taken care of, whether you're a renter or an owner, if you're a small business, that you have the support, whether it's around code enforcement or getting a permit. And that you know that I'm someone that you can have a conversation with and that will address issues within your community. I look forward to hopefully getting your support and being your next council member. Thank you.
Candidate Sean.
Thank you for having me out here. The number one thing we need to recognize is that you guys are all here because someone in your family has made a great sacrifice for our country. And because of that, you guys deserve a voice in our community and in our local government. If I'm elected, I will make sure that the Hmong community has a voice in District 3 and in our city. I have worked alongside Hmong family members with, when I grew up, I worked in the fields. I worked my way through college and have run a successful business for the last 20 years. And I will bring that success to the public sector. Thank you.
Thank you for all of you for attending today. Thank you to the Center for the invitation and the opportunity. I think this is important that each of our ethnic groups has an opportunity to hear exactly what the candidates are saying. But more importantly, I challenge all of you to go and do your homework. You need to not listen necessarily to what you hear from us. You also need to do your homework to make sure what we told you that we're doing, we're actually doing. I'm attempting to make sure that the Hmong community is part of everything that I do. I have an event on Thursday, May 3rd at the Sisavongtana building. Miss Lily is a supporter of mine. Please come out and eat, break bread with me, but have a conversation with me. You guys need to check me out. Make sure that what Darren Miller is saying he's doing, that he actually is doing. And I want to make sure that I avail myself with the opportunities to be able to take that out. That's not going to change. That's a part of my DNA. That's what I've done for the last 28 years in education, and I look forward to being able to do that for you on the City Council. But I can only do that with your support. Thank you.
Thank you. And candidate Craig.
So one thing I'd like to say to start is that, you know, politics has turned into a contact sport. And I don't like that. I don't think it's necessarily good for democracy. And I want to start by saying I am really impressed with all the people who are on the ballot in District 3. I think we have a very good group of candidates, and we probably agree on far more things than we disagree on. And I think that says a lot about our community. The mission for me for every city, and especially for Fresno, will be that every citizen, every resident has a real opportunity to achieve their highest goals. That's what drives me. Unhealthy neighborhoods don't allow people to have a real opportunity. Lead in our children's blood doesn't allow us to have a real opportunity. Lack of access to healthy foods doesn't allow us to have a real opportunity. So those are the things I want to correct. Just imagine every neighborhood in District 3 being better than it was when we started.
Thank you, Candidate Craig. Thank you guys all for your time.
Thank you.
All right, candidates for District 3, we want to thank you for being here to meet with the Hmong community. So thank you.
So basically take this guy off. Come on, man. He's about 25 pounds, man.
So when you is on,
This is one of the, we would write that like 4 or 5 of these. This is one of the better options. So I think I would tell you that.
Great job. Thank you very much.
So those are
They started catching right when you were going to switch it.
Oh, great.